What's up, friends? Back at you again. It's looking like I ought to get a fucking haircut here soon. I was thinking about a new style, so if you got any tips on style, we'll get rid of that reflection here. If you got any tips on style, let me know. There's only so many options you got with a widow's peak like mine, right? But don't forget to check me out on BitChute when or if I get banned. The channel name is the same here on YouTube as it is on BitChute, and I want to bring, I guess, a more controversial but not very talked about topic to your attention today, which is the matter of how voting works in the United States. So you could probably surmise from the title what I'm going to go into here. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people that I don't think who is or isn't allowed to vote should be based on race. But my fundamental problem with this whole system of everybody votes is that it assumes a level of universal competency that simply does not exist. So in that regard, America kind of started off on the wrong foot to begin with because it was all men. Well, all men can vote, all right? Well, problem with that is that most people are worthless. So most men are going to be worthless. Is that better than having everybody vote? Yes, by virtue of limiting the amount of people it involves in the actual process. But what we've kind of come to see here in the United States and a lot of these larger democracies as a whole is this mob rule, where kind of the lowest common denominator, the stupidest, the most lazy, the most worthless, as I said, end up in charge simply by virtue of their status as a majority. And while at the face of it, it might sound like an egalitarian policy to kind of involve them, I think it actually involved them in the political process. I think it actually doesn't, because as we can see in the late United States here, the result of having all these people in, at least ostensibly in, on how the government functions has resulted in this massive welfare state and a situation where people that are extremely uneducated, even if they've got degrees, you guys know how I feel about college, it's a giant shit show, waste of time for most people unless you choose STEM. So we've got these people who are miseducated while they think they're intelligent. They actually have no idea how to provide value. They don't have the slightest clue about civics or politics, except, you know, that which has to do with Marxism. And because they all have a say, we're ending up in this environment where we have politicians that are essentially, let's say, vote buying, for instance. Okay, so let's say you're a poor person. I remember actually thinking exactly like this back when I was 17, 18 or something. It's like, you know, I like what the Republicans have to say from like a moralistic standpoint, but if I vote for them, I might lose my fucking benefits because, you know, despite having been educated, quote unquote, by the government for 18 years, I couldn't possibly conceive of a world where I paid my way. And perhaps that's unique to me, but I think systemically, when you are putting people in a position where it's like, look, if you vote for this politician, you get these goodies, that kind of stacks the deck against more reasonable governance that might better us as a whole. So what I think we should do is have a system similar to the ancient Roman empires. I think they probably switched theirs up a lot throughout the course of their empire, but basically, if you don't own land, if you don't own property of any form, then you can't vote, which I know it's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I think overall that's the best mechanism to sort through who should have a say and who shouldn't, because throughout history, the ownership of property has always required a certain level of intellect, commitment, discipline, what have you. And the best thing about it is that it's not limited by race or sex, especially now with how easy it is to get a hold of lending, you know, relative to other times in human history, or the huge prevalence of off-market deals you can get into. So don't get me started on a real estate tangent there. But I think that would be the best overall, because anybody who's going to vote is not going to be interested in these benefit programs. They're probably not going to be interested in all sorts of overseas wars like a lot of our Republican voters are, which are extremely expensive. I argue, you know, it's basically that sort of thing is the flip side of the, you know, empire coin, where you've got your welfare state and your warfare state. And the people that like the war, I mean, yeah, at least you're doing work in the form of killing other human beings, often, you know, many of whom are innocent to you and have done nothing wrong to you, nor could they ever conceivably. And they kind of like to think they're better than, say, the proles that vote for all these social programs because they're worthless and can't imagine coming up with money on their own. So that would be the absolute best. So I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're Asian, white, obviously you got to be a citizen. Like this whole voter ID shit show we've got to deal with in this country is ridiculous. But, you know, take gender out of it, race, sex, anything out of it. If you own a house or you own a piece of land, you can vote, you know, because this issue of like equality, I think it's got a little perverted. Like, so whether or not you own property, of course you should have the right to speak freely and all the other all the other rights that our Bill of Rights enshrines so well. But I think the one protection or privilege that should be taken out of that is voting, just because to say that a property owner who's stably employed who's somewhat intelligent, hopefully average or at least above average, is as competent as, say, a hobo on the streets or any other of these fantastic different types of losers we see across the United States' like political landscape, I guess. That's ridiculous. There's no conceivable way that, like, sure, they both deserve Fourth Amendment protections. They both deserve the right to speak freely. But obviously the guy that can't even fucking support himself via laziness or mental illness should have no say in politics. And then somebody like that, being the ranks of whom having swelled as much as they have over the years, it's only increasing. And the problem starts to compound on itself. If you look at poverty and stuff before the whole socialist shit show here in the US got going in the form of Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty, it really hasn't gone down that much. It hasn't helped that much. There wasn't this groundswell, because at the end of the day, you know, even in its current form today in 2021, the United States is still probably the best country in the world to live in, at least depending on who you are, for the average person. And it's also easy enough to get ahead or make money here. I see here in Michigan, which is you know, the fucking economic ghost town, there's now hiring signs everywhere. But people would rather sit and collect a fucking unemployment benefits than actually go to work. So yeah, I guess if you have any comments, let me know. But to wrap it up, everybody should not be allowed to vote. There should be some sort of filter on it. That's because competence is not the same as equal rights, and not all people are as competent as other people just by virtue of being people. So, you know, take race, gender out of it. Just let people vote if they have a house or some kind of, maybe come up with a better filter now. Military service, I guess. I'm not a big fan of that one, you know, being against foreign wars and whatnot from an ethical standpoint. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and toodaloo.